Apparently, the conversation on the global gag rule continued. Now, we're looking at the GGR, as it said, and its implication on a lot of our social services that, that the donors themselves help or support or bring assistance to help us run through it. So at the last episode, we did agree that we have a gap here that we need to address as a nation as a matter of urgency. But on this particular episode, I would want us to focus on the way forward. We must build a bridge that should accommodate the gaps that will come, whether we like it or not. They're already rearing their heads. And we have these gaps in not just health, like we spoke to in the last episode, but we're also seeing it in other areas, in justice, in education, in a lot of things that keeps humanity alive, or gives humanity some measure of circle and comfort out there. So we are going to now start quickly. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Abiola. We're looking forward. We want things that we can do in country that are sustainable and would help us manage eventually when this global gag rule falls on us.
Well, I think there are a lot of things that we can do. I was discussing with someone earlier. As a country, there are steps that the country can take to ensure that there is support for non-for-profit. I know that, or for development work, I know that in the US there are even situations whereby if you support a particular cause, you can have a tax waiver. Now that we are going around talking about Nigerians should pay their tax, we should also be looking at having tax waivers for people who are ready to contribute to development areas. And that also affects churches and a lot of things. If people pay in churches and mosques, they can also have some kind of waivers for making formal payment, maybe through check, and then something that can be traced. I think we should begin to look at things like that.
Maha, what do you agree? That yes.
Yes, I think.
Do we have capacity really, as a country,
capacity
to meet the gap?
Well, I don't think we have that capacity, but nothing is impossible really. I mean, that's one principle that I always keep at the back of my mind, that there is no impossibility anywhere. If we strive hard, if we work hard, if we purpose to do a thing and we match it with commitment, passion, we can get the impossible done. So let me not say it is not possible. So there are different ways the government itself can encourage, just like Dr. Abiola said, encouraging tax waivers, But additionally, I think that we also need to challenge this policy, this rule. Like Dr. Oji said, he was part of an advocacy team that went to Capitol Hill in Washington, where they carried out advocacy against the gag rule that was then introduced by Bush, and that advocacy was very, very successful, and the rule was removed. What it actually means is that advocacy works. So if we target the rights, people with advocacy, and on the harmful effect of this rule, it would, it's not impossible to get it to be either rescinded or reviewed and stuff like that. But having said that, I think that while doing the advocacy and encouraging the rescission of that rule, we on our own part can also look at ways that we can find a way of breaking in and making sure that we make up the gap that we're experiencing
Okay.
as a result of the rule.
that, yes.
And I just wanted to say that the rule has actually kicked in.
Okay.
We have some of our partners who had to refuse to, sign, grants because of that rule. Because the moment they sign it and collect the grants, completely all the work they're doing regarding, preventing maternal deaths from unsafe abortion, they wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's it for reproductive health. Yeah. Let's hear from Dr. Ojina.
Yes, I want to align with myself with what I have already said. That the only, I'm a sworn optimist, no doubts, even though I have always said we don't need money from the outsiders. But the thing is, I think before now there was some conversation about now being a global village, the world being a global village. What affects us affects other people. And then there is humanity too. There's civility in the country, in the world that we want to build now. We want to be brothers and sisters keepers. It won't because God has blessed you so much and your forefathers have been very forthright in building your country. Doesn't mean you should allow other people and you should not draw them up. But they say charity begins at home. And that's where I'm aligning myself in my new, I will say, political order I have channeled for myself. I believe Nigeria can do anything that they want to do. And I'll give you a simple example. Ebola was one potentially catastrophic thing that would have happened to this country. But see how we managed Ebola. Even the so-called developed countries who felt they had everything came to Nigeria to study how we kicked out Ebola. I was a member of the National Task Force for Ebola, and I knew how Nigerians worked diligently because we knew if we didn't kick it out, we're gone. We're gone. So, and when the push comes to shove, Nigerians respond. But the important thing is that in the global women's rights sphere, America stands out there. Look at Me Too hashtag.
Yeah.
Abi?
Yes.
That shows the amount of emotion, a lot of heads of big organizations fell. Fox lost somebody. The is it Einstein or Heinstein? What's his name? Winston went. So many other people went because of the fact that there was some level of sexual assault, whichever level it was, which shows that Americans respect women's rights. They are focused on women's health also. So it is also it's a paradox. It's a paradox that this same country that protects the rights of their women will stand by, not only just standing by, is actually defunding structures they have put in place that are supposed to help women globally. So is for me,
it's a double-edged sword. Well, we're looking at solutions now, and we want to build on solutions that we as a people ourselves can manage, which will stand us out. And I always proudly like to speak to the example of Ebola and some other things too. Sometimes people think, oh, Nigeria, oh, we can't stand any pressure. Before you know it, this country will disintegrate. But we're still on as one.
This country ain't going anywhere.
And yes, and we are not going anywhere. Anyway, so let's hear from you. Which way forward? How solid are the pillars that will stand the breach? Yes.
Yes, I want to continue from where you stopped and to justify the need for this grants and support. First of all, the question you need to ask, why do we support countries? We need to do that because we need to continue to bridge the gaps between the rich and the poor. And the way to do it is why we advocate as saying that there are too much money out there and there are lots of poor people down there. Therefore, we are bridging the gap by taking from the rich for the poor. So therefore, the continuity of this project in terms of bridging the gaps must continue at every level, not just at country levels. We are talking of individuals. There are a lot of people who have so much money in this country, And there are a lot of people who wake up in this country without food. Either you agree with me or not. There are a lot of people who do not have 3 square meal in Nigeria.
93 million.
And there are a lot of people who have so much money that they don't know what to do with it. So we need to continue to bridge the gaps. And at global level, I want you to know that a tree cannot make a forest. We need you, you need us. And if you don't need us, you'll be having problem. And if we don't need you, we also have problem. So therefore, we need to continue to bridge the gaps. Then lastly, I want to tell you that Nigeria as a country, we have a problem. The problem of corruption. If you take so much money from taxpayers and other things, and the agency in charge are not using the money for what it's meant to be, that's corruption. So if you want to be sustainable, we need to eradicate corruption. We need to be transparent. We need to love one another, and we need to continue to think that without you, there will be no us, and without us, the poor community, there will be no rich community. You cannot sleep while we are awake. If the poor people cannot sleep, the rich will not sleep. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's a good one.
I would like to start by saying that in Nigeria, we have actually started charting a good course. And I have seen this amongst my friends and amongst people who are even a bit older than me. There are so many people right now that are funding the education of other people. Not only their relatives, but even neighbors. In fact, there was a WhatsApp message that started circulating, I think late last year and early this year, about this is the time to help that neighbor of yours. And I know that people have set up scholarship schemes. It may not be a formal scholarship scheme. And that is what we all need to do, because that it may not totally address the quality of our educational sector, but at least it would ensure that a lot of children are going to school. And either we like it or not, the way that our politicians are going, which may need some form of directions, especially from those that are development experts, may also be the way that some of us need to chart. When they set up their constituency project, some of them set up constituency projects, either funded by the government funds or their personal funds, they actually address sometimes the needs of the people within the society. Yes, they may be doing it for their own personal gains, but at least it still addresses the needs of, people within their society, within their community. And I think that is one thing we need to start looking at now. Looking at how do we channel our extra, into the lives of those that don't have at all. We need to start looking at that.
Right.
I think if you look at the social media and the internet, there are facilities that Nigerians have been using. One of them is crowdfunding. They crowdfund for somebody who has a serious need, and people just pay pittance. But when we look at it this way, why can't all Nigerian adults pay 100 naira every month? If we say maybe we have 90 million adult Nigerians who pay 100 naira, that's a lot of money. It can go into health. It can go to fund health and those services that nobody is funding now. It doesn't take a lot to fund health if we are really serious about it. But people want to know that whatever I put in there will be judiciously spent. They want accountability, and we have to start from there. Because once you put out somebody who has a need there, people are willing to support, and it's an avenue we should seriously explore to take care of our health needs.
I think I would just quickly like us to drive home the need that a lot of times interventions are made without having a needs assessment, and so when you go and try to intervene, you find that it's not sustainable. I think that we should push out the need that when you have the ability to give or share or care, it should meet the needs of the people where that intervention is going. And yes, I know that and my sister there is eager to.
Okay.
Do you agree that we need to have needs assessment?
Yes, I do, in all ramifications, because I was sharing earlier on, and I said that you go out to solve a problem, and then you look back, and then there's a myriad, unsolved. So it's like the little you're doing or the much you think you're doing is really not even effective enough. So it's like, how do I start? So there's need for serious needs assessment before we can begin to say we want to solve a problem. And that's the only way we can be sure that the problem can be solved or will be solved eventually. But suffice it to say that all that has been said about the way forward, I'm just jotting out 3 points, which is very, very uppermost in my heart, is that we must be accountable as a people. No parent, nobody wants to give you when the person realizes that I keep giving and I'm not getting results. The funding will stop. There's no magic to it. It will stop someday. Even as parents, you don't keep training your children. Nobody wants to train children till they are old. So it's going to stop someday. So if you as a parent will stop funding your children someday, then as a nation, we also must understand that our donors, our funders will stop at some point. That's one. Two, I believe that as Nigerians, I think we have come to the point where we must deliberately just get tired of what is wrong. It is wrong, it is wrong. You stand just be there. There's no need to try to cover it up. It is wrong. And the third thing I said here is that bridging the gap involves everyone looking out for the next person's welfare. We just have to. Your next door neighbor isn't eating. You have a problem, whether you like it or not. You can't be making food and it's smelling so deliciously and then your neighbor is hungry. He or she is going to come after you, whether you like it or not. They're going to come after you. Their children are going to steal from you. It starts from there. So if we look out for the next person, even a meal, share your meal. Share something with them. Show that care, because nobody's going to resist care and love. Nobody does that. And I think as a nation, we've come to that stage where it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what part of Nigeria you come from. Look out for your next door neighbor. And I think we'll get it right eventually. Thank you.
I can see 2 things. Most of us down here belong from organizations, that's not-for-profit organizations, and we are the ones that are working at community level. The power of advocacy is very strong. As we are advocating globally, we also have to start advocating internally, because we have to pull ourselves together and talk. And some of the policies that are being formulated are not based on data. The needs assessment we're talking about, we have so many NGOs that have done so many needs assessments that we can do DEX review to see for each state what are the needs, so that we don't just have policies that just cut across the states without looking at the nitty-gritty of the needs of the states and the communities. So that when we're formulating interventions, we're looking at the needs, as we said. So we need, as women, and then let me just say, if you're talking about reproductive health, what are you talking about? The woman.
The woman.
You are talking of HIV/AIDS. What are you talking about? It has a female face. Poverty. If you are looking at education, who is struggling to take her children to school? The woman. So the woman has to come out and talk about these issues. We have to create it, and it has to be in the media. It has to be everywhere for our policies to hear that we as women, we have issues. And then we have to do constructive advocacy with data. And then the way forward, because sometimes we do advocacy without giving them the way forward and think that it will change. It will not change. Thank you very much.
So for me, it's really simple. 2019 is around the corner. We use our powers as the electorate to ensure that we bring in sensitive leaders who are sensitive to the needs of the people and who are also involved in the ills of the system. And so if we're able to raise for ourselves leaders who are not going to go in there and be influenced by power and be influenced by all that goes on the seat of power, I think we're one step ahead of solving some of our problems. Thank you.
Yes, I'll just go back to Mother on the Street.
Each one teach one. Each one help one. I'm not talking about 5,000 naira. I'm not talking about 500 naira. I'm talking about 50 naira. You will not believe the power of 50 naira. you don't help because 50 naira is so small. Hello, it's going to take her from point A to point B. 50 naira. And 50 naira you give to a woman, she will add more okra, and she's going to make soup. In that compound, most people will bring their own bowls to take from that money that you gave. 50 naira, just 50 naira. We should help each other from the bottom up.
Lives. So
yeah, I wanted to just add a bit on this issue of needs assessment. You know, there's this fallacy sometimes that development partners have that, well, they know it.
Yeah.
They know the best thing that would address the situation. Unfortunately, when they get there, they discover probably that's not what the people want. That's not what will make the difference for them. And that is why today development is, for it to be sustainable, needs to be involving, needs to be participatory, needs to, in fact, right from design stage, you need to, I mean, before you design, you actually need to reach out to the people for whom you are intending that development. Discuss with them, agree what the problems are, agree what the solutions are, and then you begin to make the design. From design to implementation, if you carry the people for whom that development is meant for, then that development would be sustained because they will have a sense of ownership. They were part of designing it in the first place, and whatever success comes to it, they see it as their own success.
Yes.
Yes, for me, I completely align myself with all the speakers' thoughts. But I still feel that it's important we pay attention to the fact that there should be a moral rearmament, both in governments, both in communities, at every level. We can't continue doing things the way we're doing them now. But however, the greatest push and leadership has to come from government. Government can help organize things and make citizens feel wanted as a citizen. If I feel wanted as a Nigerian, then I will represent Nigeria in every level of my thoughts, of my deeds. And one of the key areas, no matter the amount of money we put on the table, somebody mentioned corruption, it will fritter it away. So the government is talking about corruption, so we need to pay real attention to that corruption, because that is one single Malay that is killing us. You get the point? So we must start doing things properly as a country. Then the other one, the government is also doing very well in the social reinvestment program. Last year was $500 billion in that pot of money, and I don't know how much of that money has been spent. And then we're talking about development. I think one of us is actually part of that disbursing that resource. In the meeting I just came from before now, BOI was there, Access Bank was there. They are having a collaboration to make sure that money gets to women. But also the responsibility now lies also on the women group's leadership.
Yeah.
Women have so much force and power.
Yeah.
And that's why if you look at the microcredit system, generally all across the nations, women have actually stayed the course. Even though they are charging them, as far as I'm concerned, I'm on the leg, when you say 10% per month, that is 120% aggregated. So it's important that we think about moral rearmament, and government should focus in ways that will stimulate growth. This social reinvestment, this is what we're talking about, corporate social responsibilities, which has to give tax breaks. I think she mentioned that before. This is something that we need to start looking at so that we can bring development to our people.
Finally?
Well, I think that from what everyone is saying, I think it's pointing to the fact that we need to build a culture of support, a very strong support system for one another. And that's not alien to us as Africans. It's not new to us as Nigerians. We have actually grew up always wanting to support, and that's what led to issues of foster parenting. So we've always have that system.
Extended family.
Yes, extended family, taking care of the next person and all that. So I think we just need to reactivate that culture as Nigerians. So if we do that, it will not take long for us to be able to achieve the kind of dream that we have for the country.
And not be frightened by the global
gag rule. Yeah.
So I think what we've built here is a consensus that as Nigerians we can.
Yeah.
And it's not so much about what we have been able to articulate, but it's the action that we put into it. And we have advocates here who are ready, to actually submit themselves for action. And so on behalf of all of us, Nigerians, it's time for action. For us to be able to remove the heat that will come or has come as a result of global gag rule. And the spirit of the Nigerian, your brother's keeper, and beyond that, being able to do things that are meaningful, and again, not accepting defeat and not being too negative. It is not possible. We are saying here that it is possible. Thanks for watching. That's all on this. We'll be back same time next time.